What happens when a tech billionaire tries to humiliate a waitress in front of a crowd? But she stands her ground, replying with such razor-sharp composure that it silences the entire room. If you were seated at table 14 that night, you wouldn't suspect that a historic moment was about to unfold. Maybe you were sipping Chardonnay, chatting about the next big Chicago startup, or scrolling through your phone between bites of steak. But at table 9, one line changed everything. If you're moved by this display of resilience, hit like, subscribe to 30 Millionaire stories, and stay until the very end to witness the moment that made the whole world listen. Naomi Carter, the 27-year-old waitress, glided expertly between crowded tables. She moved like a dancer in a meticulously choreographed ballet. Her chestnut curls were pinned neatly at the nape of her neck. Her name tag, Naomi, gleamed beneath the chandelier's glow. She didn't rely on coquettish smiles or sweet chatter to boost her tips. Instead, with a tired yet genuine smile, Naomi worked diligently, always punctual, never allowing the stress of long shifts to erode her professionalism. She served with astonishing calm. Though that evening Lumiere was packed with diners in tailored suits, lawyers with leather briefcases, and glittering watches adorning their wrists. Having just taken a dessert order from the couple at table 12, she was about to head back to the station when a sharp voice rang out from table 9, slicing through the lively hum. "Excuse me, miss." Naomi turned, notebook still in hand. Her expression stayed composed, though alert. The man at table 9, late 40s, silver hair slicked back, clad in a flawless black suit, barked at her as if she were his subordinate. "I've been waiting 15 minutes, he snapped, his tone harsh, his gaze cold as steel. "Where's the manager?" Nearby patrons froze mid-bite, forks suspended in mid-air, their eyes darting to table 9 as though awaiting a spectacle. Naomi inhaled softly, maintaining her professional smile despite her heart racing. "Right away, sir," she replied evenly, revealing no hint of annoyance. Yet the man only grew more irate. "I don't care what you've been busy with," he roared, his voice echoing so loudly that guests at adjacent tables frowned. That man was Ethan Caldwell, a single father and tech billionaire, the mastermind behind the Caldwell Systems automation empire, with assets in the billions. Ethan was accustomed to everyone bowing at his feet, from junior staff to business partners. Any delay, even by minutes, felt like a personal affront. Naomi's unshakable composure inadvertently made her the target of his frustration. She didn't rush straight to table 9 as he demanded. Instead, she finished taking the order at table 12, exchanged a few reassuring words to ensure accuracy, and only then returned to the station to prepare for Ethan's table. That small act, prioritizing her duties over cowering before his tirade, ignited a silent battle between her and Ethan. Naomi approached table 9, notebook open, smile still on her lips, though her eyes now bore a hint of steel. "I apologize for the delay, sir," she said, her voice calm yet firm. "What would you like to order tonight?" Ethan studied her. His gaze narrowed, as if appraising a rival rather than a waitress. He took a deliberate sip of water, yet the tension in the air remained taut. Nearby diners pretended to return to their meals. Still, they watched covertly, sensing something significant unfolding. Ethan offered no immediate reply. His eyes stayed locked on Naomi, as if weighing whether to press on with this unspoken challenge. Lumiere continued to glow with golden light. Norah Jones's melodies drifted softly through the room. But at table 9, a silent drama was just beginning. Naomi, with her quiet resilience, and Ethan, with his power and pride, had unknowingly intersected in this opulent setting. Naomi's simple act, Holding her composure and refusing to bow to his outburst was more than professional courtesy. It was a bold assertion of her dignity. Beneath Lumiere's sparkling glow, two souls from entirely different worlds stood at a crossroads, unaware that this moment would steer them toward unexpected change. Naomi stepped up to table 9. She set down 2 glasses of water with a gentle, precise motion, as if the tension radiating from the guest before her couldn't touch her. "Thank you for waiting," she said, her voice soft yet professional. "May I start you off with anything?" Ethan Caldwell, the arrogant tech billionaire, didn't look at her. His cold gaze fixed on the distance, as though her presence were a trivial annoyance. "Oh, how impressive," he sneered, his voice carrying through Lumiere's opulent space. It drowned out the clink of wine glasses and the soft piano of Norah Jones on the speakers. "You can walk and talk at the same time. Shall I give you a round of applause?" A woman seated opposite him, perhaps an assistant or a companion, grimaced. Her eyes dropped to the menu as if to avoid being caught up in Ethan's outburst. Nearby diners paused mid-conversation. Their eyes darted toward table 9. The air crackled like a taut string ready to snap. Naomi didn't blink. Her face remained the picture of composure honed through long shifts and demanding customers. "Sparkling or still?" she asked evenly, as if Ethan's derision were nothing more than idle chatter. Ethan laughed. The sound was loud and hollow, a declaration of war. Finally, he met her gaze. His eyes were sharp, appraising her like a rival. "You know," he said slowly, dripping with sarcasm, "if you worked harder instead of whining, you might actually accomplish something." The room seemed to freeze. A nearby waiter halted mid-pour, bottle tilted in mid-air. A spoon clinked against a soup bowl at the next table, but no one reached to pick it up. Ethan's words were more than rude. They were a public slap, delivered to humiliate Naomi before an audience of elite patrons. Ethan tilted his head, his eyes narrowed, as though testing her limits. "Are you listening to me?" he continued, his tone low but cutting. "Or do you need me to speak more slowly?" Naomi stood her ground, pencil still poised, notebook open halfway, her eyes locked on him. There was no anger or fear in her gaze, only a powerful, unspoken calm. Her jaw tensed slightly, a small sign of restraint. Then she drew a slow breath, her eyes flickering down to the table for a moment before returning to Ethan. Her silence rang loud. It was a response that needed no words. Diners at table 14 fell silent. All eyes turned to her. A man at the bar set his glass down deliberately. He seemed unwilling to miss what would happen next. "Is there anything else you'd like?" Naomi asked, her tone steady, as if Ethan's insults had no power over her. Ethan sneered, a contemptuous smirk twisting his lips. "Is this your idea of service?" he boomed, his voice carrying to ensure everyone in the room heard. "Such insolence!" He turned to the woman opposite him, his gaze seeking affirmation. "See that?" he declared, brimming with self-satisfaction. "People like her, thinking they deserve special treatment just for showing up." His words, vicious and public, were a third dagger aimed at cutting Naomi down, turning her into a cautionary example of his superiority. But Naomi remained unmoved, as solid as a rock in a raging river. Her pencil hand did not tremble, her eyes never left Ethan's, and her calm, wordless though it was, bore a power that made the air in Lumiere feel heavier than ever. The restaurant still gleamed under the golden chandelier light. Norah Jones' melody drifted softly, but at table 9 a silent battle raged. Naomi, with her unspoken dignity, faced Ethan, armed with power and billionaire pride. His cutting remarks could not shatter her resilience. Nearby diners, though pretending to resume their meals, felt the heat of this moment, as if witnessing something far greater than a mere spat. Beneath Lumiere's sparkling glow, Naomi stood her ground, refusing to bow, refusing to yield, ready for whatever Ethan would hurl next. This small moment was the beginning of a story that would change them both, in ways no one in that room could foresee. Naomi slowly placed her small notebook into her apron pocket, her movements unhurried, deliberate, as if she were preparing for a pivotal moment. She clasped her hands before her chest and stood tall, her posture as unwavering as an ancient oak facing a storm. There was no blazing anger in her eyes, no tremor of fear or fury, only a profound stillness, a quiet power emanating from the way she carried herself in the face of Ethan Caldwell's public humiliation. She fixed her gaze on him. Her look was neither defiant nor proud, but as though she saw straight through him, past his arrogance, past the trappings of billionaire power, into the hidden corners of his soul. Then, in the suffocating silence of the room, where every eye was riveted on table 9, she spoke, her voice gentle, yet razor-sharp. "You must be exhausted, carrying that bitterness with you wherever you go." Her words, uttered at just the right volume, rippled through Lumiere's opulent space like a stone cast across a glassy lake. They sent waves through the tense air. There was no shouting, no insults, no heated argument, just a bare truth delivered with solemn purity, as if Naomi had stripped away Ethan's arrogance with a single sentence. The room, already taut from his taunts and scorn, seemed to hold its breath. Ethan blinked. His face, usually sharp and self-assured, showed confusion for the first time. His mouth parted, as though seeking a witty comeback or familiar barb, but no sound emerged. He, the man accustomed to controlling every situation, appeared disarmed, bereft of any defense. Lauren, the woman opposite Ethan, perhaps his assistant, perhaps a friend, looked up, her eyes on Naomi as if witnessing something sacred. Naomi's composure and dignity, in a moment where anyone might have crumbled or snapped back, shone like a shaft of light piercing the darkness of Ethan's pride. At table 14, a middle-aged man in a gray suit leaned in to whisper to his companion, his voice a mix of surprise and admiration. "Damn." That whisper, small though it was, echoed in the silence, affirming that this was more than a confrontation. It was a turning point, a defining moment in Lumiere's atmosphere. The room didn't just fall silent, it transformed. The tension that had surged like a storm as Ethan hurled insult after insult at Naomi did not dissipate, but shifted, like the sky clearing after rain. Guests remained at their tables with glasses of wine and plates of food, yet they no longer pretended to focus on their meals. Their eyes, discreet yet intent, remained fixed on table 9, where Naomi stood unmoving like a statue, impervious to his cutting words. Ethan, accustomed to everyone bowing to his power and wealth, looked disoriented. He tried to regain his composure, muttering irritably, "You think that was clever?" But his voice was quieter, slightly shaky. It sounded as if he were trying to convince himself more than Naomi. That weak, unconvincing remark only highlighted his defeat before her steadfast resilience. Naomi offered no response. She didn't need to. Her brief words had been enough to turn the tide, not just against Ethan, but across the entire room. The guests at table 14 resumed their chatter, but in hushed tones. They seemed to be discussing the moment they'd just witnessed. A server nearby, bottle still in hand, allowed himself a small, respectful smile. His eyes flicked toward Naomi in silent admiration. Lauren, The woman opposite Ethan bent over her menu, yet the corner of her mouth betrayed a hidden smile. The restaurant, bathed in golden chandelier light and Norah Jones's melodies, slipped back into its rhythm. But the air had changed. Naomi, through her calm dignity, had reshaped the space, turning it from a stage of arrogance into a place where authenticity and strength were honored. Naomi remained standing, her hands still clasped before her chest. Her gaze never left Ethan, yet carried no hostility. She had said what needed saying, and now she was ready to resume her work, as if his insults could not touch her. Beneath Lumiere's sparkling glow, Naomi Carter was more than a waitress. She was a woman who had stood firm through the storm, and that small act was the beginning of a larger story, one in which she and Ethan, two opposing worlds, would be compelled to confront themselves in unexpected ways. An oppressive silence engulfed the room. It was only broken when Marcus, the restaurant manager, stepped out from behind the reception desk. Tall and composed, dressed in a crisp white shirt, Marcus usually avoided intervening in guests' disputes, unless the conflict escalated beyond ignoring. But this time, he stood directly behind Naomi. His gaze was sharp, yet not angry. His voice calm, yet firm, bearing a weight that could not be dismissed. "Is there a problem, sir?" he asked, looking straight at Ethan, who remained seated, his face flushed from Naomi's public rebuke. Ethan sat up straight, struggling to reclaim the authority of a tech billionaire at the helm of Caldwell Systems. He cleared his throat, his eyes flicking past Naomi as if she didn't exist, then turned to Marcus. "I've been humiliated in your restaurant," he exclaimed, his voice loud but lacking its usual confidence. Marcus remained still, never glancing at Naomi. His eyes locked on Ethan, as though appraising not just his words, but the man himself. "By whom?" Marcus asked evenly. "From where I'm standing, I see only a woman working hard and a man intent on humiliating her." His words, straightforward and unforgiving, cut through Ethan's veneer of arrogance. Lauren, the woman opposite Ethan, perhaps his assistant or companion, nodded slightly. Her eyes passed over Naomi with a hint of respect. "She did nothing wrong," Lauren whispered, her voice soft but unwavering. Ethan turned to her, his expression a mix of shock and fury. "Now you side with her?" he growled, surprise and betrayal lacing his tone. Lauren bowed her head, replying quietly, "I don't want to get involved." The atmosphere at Lumiere shifted, as if a fresh breeze had swept through. The patrons at nearby tables, who'd watched silently from the start, now seemed to side with Marcus and Naomi. Ethan's rudeness had not only embarrassed him, but exposed a pettiness that money and power could not conceal. A couple at table 12 exchanged glances. The woman shook her head, clearly appalled by Ethan's behavior. A man at the bar sipped his drink, his eyes briefly lighting on Naomi with a discreet smile. Marcus moved closer to table 9. His posture remained calm but carried an unspoken authority. "I must ask you to lower your voice," he said, his tone deep yet cutting, "or we can continue this conversation outside." His words were not a threat but a final courtesy, spoken with the confidence of one who knows he stands on the right side. Ethan sprang to his feet, his face flushed crimson, his furious gaze swept first over Marcus, then back to Naomi. "Are you kicking me out?" he thundered, his voice trembling with anger and humiliation. Marcus met his glare without flinching. "No. I'm giving you the chance to leave with your dignity." Those words, simple yet powerful, fell like the final blow to Ethan's arrogance. He let out a derisive laugh. It wavered, betraying desperation more than confidence. "All of you, pretending to hold lofty morals," he spat, his voice loud yet hollow. "Just because I spoke the truth!" He swept his eyes around the room, challenging someone, anyone, to side with him, but no one responded. Diners bowed their heads over their plates. Staff returned quietly to their duties. The silence felt like a collective refusal. "Applaud the waitress!" Ethan roared, bitterness lacing his words. "As if you actually care." He yanked his jacket from the chair and stormed out. The glass door slammed behind him, echoing in the still air. Lauren, the woman who had accompanied him, did not follow immediately. She rose slowly and moved to the bar, ordering a glass of wine as if to distance herself from the chaos he left behind. She took a sip, her eyes flicked toward Naomi, showing a mix of regret and respect. Naomi remained at table 9, her hands still clasped before her chest. Instead of watching Ethan go, her gaze turned to Marcus. She offered a slight nod, a silent, "Thank you." Marcus returned the gesture with a small, knowing nod before stepping back to the reception desk, leaving Naomi to continue her work. The room gradually resumed its rhythm, glasses clinking, murmured conversations, Norah Jones drifting through the speakers, but the atmosphere had shifted. Naomi, through her steadfast courage and dignity, had not only withstood Ethan's onslaught, but had etched an indelible mark on every witness. Beneath Lumiere's golden glow, she carried on serving, unbowed, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in a story only just beginning. The dining room slowly came back to life, as if a storm had just passed. Guests returned to their meals, the clink of cutlery on porcelain resurfacing in harmony with Norah Jones's gentle piano from the speakers. Yet the atmosphere had shifted, not tense as before, but filled with a quiet relief and respect for Naomi Carter, the waitress who had stood firm against a billionaire's public insult. A middle-aged man at table 14, dressed in a gray suit with a discreet smile, raised his glass toward Naomi as she passed, a silent toast to her dignity. Naomi exhaled softly. Her smile was tired yet genuine. She carried on with her work, not seeking medals or applause, simply determined to finish her shift with the same dedication she brought every day. But that moment didn't fade amid Lumiere's opulence. It rippled outward. When Naomi carried a tray to table 12, an elderly woman with silver hair and a silk teal dress stopped her. "You handled that so calmly," she said, her voice warm, her eyes sparkling with admiration. "My daughter is also a server, and I hope she can learn from you." Naomi smiled. The woman's sincere praise touched her. "Thank you, ma'am," she replied gently. "I hope she never has to go through something like this." Naomi returned to her duties, but the compliments kept coming. Tips that night were surprisingly generous, far exceeding anything she'd ever received. Table 5 left $100 on a $50 bill, a gift Naomi knew was recognition for how she faced Ethan. Table 8 left a small note beside their tip, handwritten, "For your self-respect." Those gestures, however small, were like cool breezes, easing the fatigue of a long shift. Lauren, the woman who had accompanied Ethan, didn't leave immediately after he stormed out. She moved to the bar and ordered a glass of wine, her eyes sweeping the room as if to distance herself from the chaos he'd created. Before departing, she approached Naomi, who was clearing a nearby table. "I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner," Lauren whispered, her voice soft but filled with remorse. "He's always like that, but today you did what I couldn't." Naomi looked at her without an ounce of reproach. "You spoke up now," she replied in a gentle tone. "That's enough." Lauren nodded, a faint smile on her lips, then left Lumiere, leaving Naomi with the knowledge that, in a small way, she had touched something deep within that woman's heart. Late into the night, as Lumiere emptied of patrons, Marcus, the restaurant manager, pulled Naomi aside at the reception desk. He stood there, tall in his crisp white shirt, his gaze serious but not cold. "I've filed a report with our corporate office," he said, his voice low. "You handled yourself exceptionally well, Naomi, but he's well connected. He could cause trouble. You need to be careful." Naomi nodded, unsurprised. She was used to facing people like Ethan, those who wield power to intimidate. "Thank you, Marcus," she replied evenly, gratitude flickering in her eyes. Marcus gave a short nod, then returned to his duties, leaving Naomi to finish her shift. Stepping out into the frigid Michigan Avenue air, Naomi's phone buzzed. She saw a message from her friend Aisha, attached to a video and the caption, "Girl, you're trending on Twitter." The grainy, covert clip filmed inside Lumiere captured Ethan's insult and Naomi's razor-sharp reply. "You must be exhausted carrying that bitterness with you wherever you go." The video exploded online with the caption, "Waitress silences billionaire with a single line." Thousands of likes, shares, and comments flooded in, from praise for Naomi's composure to condemnation of Ethan's behavior. Naomi glanced at the screen. Her eyes skimmed the comments, but she neither smiled nor boasted. She locked her phone, slipped it into her coat pocket, and walked on under the streetlights, her breath rising in white clouds in the cold air. Lumiere, with its golden glow and lavish atmosphere, was now merely the backdrop to the shift she had just completed. Naomi sought neither fame nor recognition from the viral video. She simply wanted to do her job well, to uphold her dignity in the face of people like Ethan, and to continue living with the quiet resilience that defined her. Yet that moment, unknown to her, had opened a new door, a place where her story, and Ethan's, would evolve in ways no one at the restaurant could predict. Beneath the Chicago night sky, Naomi walked on, unbowed, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. After that fateful moment, when Naomi Carter met tech billionaire Ethan Caldwell's insult with one sharp, composed line, her story didn't end within those opulent walls. The internet erupted at lightning speed. Naomi's Instagram account, which had just 500 followers, surged to 12,000 in hours. The covert video of the Lumiere showdown spread across TikTok, Reddit, and other platforms, subtitled and set to dramatic music, turning her words, "You must be exhausted, carrying that bitterness with you wherever you go," into a rallying cry for resilience. News outlets contacted her, requesting interviews to feature the waitress who silenced a billionaire. A GoFundMe campaign titled "Support Naomi" raised $50,000 in 24 hours from strangers moved by her dignity. Ethan's PR team scrambled out an apology statement. Mr. Caldwell regrets his inappropriate behavior and is reflecting on his actions. But social media was unforgiving. Comments flew. "He's sorry he got caught, not sorry for what he said." In a bid to regain control, Ethan posted a long message decrying cancel culture and insisting his remarks were misunderstood. Instead, his post poured fuel on the fire, drawing fierce backlash from those who saw it as shirking responsibility. Meanwhile, Lumiere became the city's hottest reservation, packed nightly with diners eager not only for the food, but to meet Naomi, the unflappable heroine. One evening, an elderly teacher with salt and pepper hair stopped Naomi as she delivered a bill. "I've taught for 30 years, she said, admiration shining in her eyes. "And you've shown me how to speak truth while keeping peace in your heart. Thank you." Naomi nodded, moved by the heartfelt words. "Thank you, ma'am. I was just trying to do what's right." A week later, a letter arrived at Lumiere from Ethan's attorney, offering a private apology and a scholarship fund in Naomi's name at a Southside vocational center. Naomi read the letter. She folded it carefully, but didn't respond immediately. After her shift, she and her friend Aisha sat in a small coffee shop talking about the offer. "This isn't about his redemption," Naomi said, her voice low but firm. "It's about everyone else. Those who saw me refused to bow and realized they could do the same." Aisha nodded, pride shining in her eyes, but let Naomi savor the moment. 2 weeks later, Naomi stood before 20 teens at a Southside community center. She shared her story wearing a simple blouse, her gaze bright yet sincere, her voice clear in the small room. "Sometimes," she told them, "people notice your shoes, your skin, or your job before they look into your eyes, but you control what you say and how you say it. Calm is strength. Silence is a battle. Self-respect is the boundary you set." A 14-year-old girl raised her hand. "What happened after you said that to him?" Naomi smiled, her eyes recalling that instant. "I stood my ground," she answered, "and the richest man in the room learned that money can't buy respect." Naomi didn't chase the spotlight of her sudden fame. She turned down major television interviews and refused any media deals to capitalize on her story. She continued working at Lumiere, carrying trays, pouring wine, and greeting diners with a smile. But now her eyes were sharper, as if she carried a newfound confidence. An invisible thread, romantic and mysterious, connected her to Ethan. Not love, but an awakening he had inadvertently sparked. That moment of confrontation had ignited in her a fierce belief that she existed not merely to survive, but to change the way others see the world. One evening, Naomi stood outside Lumiere and looked up at Chicago's night sky. The stars twinkled above the city lights, and though the wind was cold, she did not shiver. She knew she had not only overcome Ethan's challenge, but had left her mark, not just for herself, but for everyone seeking the strength to stand their ground. Beneath Michigan Avenue's dim glow, Naomi drew a deep breath. She was ready for whatever lay ahead, armed with the self-respect and resilience that defined her. Leave a comment. If this story of perseverance moved you, hit like, subscribe to 30 Millionaire Stories, and share a time when you stood up to injustice. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.